Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So I want to do a video saying thank you to Rand Paul, the politician, and I want to say thank you to him for blocking the anti-lynching federal hate crime and bill, and I want to say, and this was something that Kristen Clarke, who is an attorney, and she, I believe, is the director, the head of an organization which I believe it's called the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights, or something very similar to that, something very close to that. So anyway, Kristen Clarke is very stupid, and she's also an egregious anti-white racist and a black supremacist. She doesn't understand the meaning of the term civil rights, and so and she's also doesn't understand that hate crime legislation is incredibly, abominably stupid and grossly unconstitutional for a number of reasons, including the fact that it's grossly unconstitutional thought and speech crime, and it's a violation of fair trial constitutional protections and double jeopardy. It's just egregiously stupid. It's abominably stupid for a number of reasons. And so Kristen Clarke was on Twitter, and she was advocating for this federal hate crime anti-lynching bill, and she was castigating Senator Rand Paul for blocking it, and basically for single-handedly blocking it. And I just want to say thank you so much to Rand Paul for blocking the anti-lynching federal hate crime bill, and I really appreciate it. And I want to explain that Kristen Clarke, she's blocking me. She's blocking me on Twitter because I called her out for participating in the global vilification and defamation campaign against me that almost got me killed. And I am, of course, an entirely innocent anti-racism Yale grad student, and also the entirely innocent victim of the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. And I'm also a well-documented and lifelong human and civil rights activist and licensed attorney. And if Kristen Clarke had bothered to Google my not at all common name, she would have known this before she tried to drive me to suicide on Twitter and subjected me to trial by Twitter without due process. So she also claims she's one of these so-called civil rights attorneys who claim to be anti the carceral state, anti-mass incarceration, for prison abolition. I am actually for prison abolition. I mean something very specific by that. And actually, I'm also for punishment abolition, and I also mean something very specific by that. But anyway, so these lying bigots and frauds who claim to be anti the carceral state seem to love getting innocent civil rights attorneys killed, driving them to suicide, destroying their human and civil rights careers, their academic and legal careers on Twitter by subjecting them to trial by Twitter without due process. So Kristen Clarke is someone who did that to me. She strongly suggested on Twitter that I should be expelled from Yale, and she accused me of racial profiling. So she is a lying bigot and a fraud, and she's really stupid because she doesn't understand that hate crime legislation is grossly unconstitutional. So, and I just want to explain, this is such a perfect example. I am the perfect example. I am the perfect example. And what Kristen Clarke did to me on Twitter is the perfect example of why the combination of woke intersectional feminism and critical race theory and hate crime legislation is deadly dangerous. It's deadly dangerous. Because a foundational premise of woke intersectional feminism and critical race theory is that an accusation by a person of color, in particular a black person against a white person, is a sentence, is a verdict, is a condemnation. There's no questions, no due process required. no questions asked. If you are accused, then you are guilty. If you ask for due process, that's just evidence of your guilt, that you're a white supremacist, neo-Nazi. So this is a problem. If you apply this to hate crime legislation, that's a problem. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. And I basically was tried and convicted and sentenced to death, basically, on Twitter. On Twitter, not even in a court of law. By attorneys who were calling for me to be disbarred, expelled, prosecuted. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This should really terrify everybody. This should terrify absolutely everyone. If this can happen to me, a well-documented and lifelong human and civil rights activist and licensed attorney, it can happen to literally anyone. It can happen to you. Your life can be destroyed in a moment on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. So I just really want to thank, I have been warning about this sort of thing for years, for decades. For decades I have been warning about the egregious dangers and unconstitutionality of hate crime legislation for this very reason. And now everything I've been warning about for decades has come to pass to me. I am the proof. I am the proof that I was right to warn against this. So anyway, so I just wanted to thank you so much, Rand Paul, for blocking the anti-lynching federal hate crime bill. We don't need another piece of hate crime legislation, period. No more Karen acts, no more hate crime legislation. And now what's happening is that the language and the definitions for the federal crime of terrorism and federal hate crimes are being elided together, and this is deadly dangerous. Okay? Now we have Karen acts, which are basically grossly unconstitutional bills of attainder, and they're meant to deny white women in particular due process and equal protection. And now you're going to say what's happening, what the Democrats are doing is that piece by piece, step by step, they're trying to make it the case that your unwoke thoughts and speech are not only criminalized as hate crimes, but they're going to be criminalized as acts of terrorism. That is what is happening. That is what is happening. That is what I've been warning about for decades. And now it's coming to pass, and it's coming to pass to me. I am named in the proposals for Karen acts in state legislatures across the U.S. basically as a white nationalist terrorist. And I'm a well-documented and lifelong human and civil rights activist. So if this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to you. So thank you, Rand Paul. Thank you for blocking the anti-lynching bill. And I'm going to keep screaming this from the mountaintops until these idiots like Kristen Clarke get it through their heads, get it through their skulls, how abominably stupid and racist and bigoted and just ridiculous and preposterous hate crime legislation is, and grossly unconstitutional. Okay, I don't want this video to get too long, but I'll have my PayPal, me, and GoFundMe links below. I will have my fundraising link to donate directly to my awesome attorneys, the Randazza Legal Group. Below, just put Sarah Braasch in the reference line. And I love you all so much for everything. We are going to win this fight. We're going to restore due process and equal protection at Yale and on campuses across the U.S. and everywhere. Okay, I love you all so much. Have a great night. Bye.